Okay.
So, what can you smell?
Whiskey.
It
smells very nice.
Yeah, whiskey or gin?
Gin.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Wow.
It's
got a kick. Wow.
Whisky High Notes, the classical music and whiskey podcast you never realised you needed, live from the Three Choirs Festival. So, good afternoon, good evening. This is Whisky High Notes. I'm your host, Naomi Belshaw, and we're on the road today. Usually I'm at the Soho Whisky Club in London, but we are now in the grounds or the cloisters of Gloucester Cathedral, which
beautiful.
is a really beautiful view. And it's a special week in Gloucester today because it's the Three Choirs Festival, which has actually been running for nearly 300 years in terms of editions, but yeah, in terms of numbers of years, over 300 years. So it's possibly the oldest classical festival in the world, certainly for non-profit stuff as well. And I'm going to be doing a few smaller podcasts while I'm here this week because I'm involved in the festival. And my first guest today is composer Gavin Higgins. Thank you so much for joining me. We're going to be talking about a bit of the music here, and well, I think it'd be nice, first of all, tell us a bit more about how you became a composer and how you're here.
Yeah, so I'm a local lad. I was born in Gloucester, grew up just down the road in the Forest of Dean, and I guess I got into music. Well, I had no choice getting into music. My whole family were amateur musicians in the local brass band. I was given a cornet when I was about 3 years old.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Don't remember learning to play. And so it was kind of inevitable that music would be a big part of my life, whether I liked it or not.
Yeah.
And I practiced lots and got really good, and then wanted to become a horn player, and then sort of realised that playing the horn is actually very, very hard.
Oh, right, yeah.
And also not particularly creative. And I was very creative as a child, and I kind of needed something creative to do. And I just sort of fell into composition by just doing little arrangements for the band.
Yeah.
And then every arrangement I did, I just put a little bit more of myself in, and then a little bit more of myself. And then before you knew it, I was sort of writing pastiche pieces of composers I liked, and then gradually sort of found my own voice. And yeah, so it's a real honour to be here at the festival. I think I had a piece done in about 3 years ago for the Fairy Bride, and it seemed to go down quite well.
Yeah, I was there.
Which was nice. And then they asked me if I would accept this role, and I said, yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic thing to have composers properly associated with the festival in such a deep way. And you're going to be writing music over the next 3 years, and I think you've got a premiere in the middle of the festival this week. So that will be on Radio 3, I think.
Radio 3, yes, live.
And it's Magnificat and Nunc Dimittis.
Yes.
That's right. So I'm looking forward to that. But we should get to what we're about this afternoon, which is classical music and whiskey. It's Whisky High Notes. So to start with, I always do a quick fire round section where I just basically ask you some quick questions and just give your answer.
Okay.
How you feel. Whiskey or gin?
Gin.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sweet or savoury?
Savoury.
Tumbler or Glencairn?
I don't even know what that means. Tumbler sounds nice.
So I put that in partly because we have actually got a range of glasses today.
Oh, okay, right.
So we're on the road.
Oh, I see.
And so normally I would do all in Glencairns because that's what's available at the Soho Whisky Club. But we have tumblers and Glencairns.
Tumbler.
So we can talk about the difference. But thank you for that. So we'll go straight on to the next part of the day, which is we've chosen, or I asked you to think about the first weekend of the Three Choirs Festival this year and pieces of music you liked, and you chose 3. And I've chosen 3 whiskies to pair with that. And I've also, very luckily for this on-the-road version, I have 3 distilleries that have very kindly given me various expressions of whiskies from them. So that's Benromach, who are up in Speyside in Scotland. We also have the Lindores Abbey Distillery, which is in the Lowlands as well. And then we also have Ludlow whiskey, which is actually a locally based whiskey in these regions. So it kind of felt fitting to include that as well. So thank you to all of those guys for giving me a selection to choose from. And so thinking about the pieces you chose.
Yeah.
And also thinking specifically to the festival, you chose Zvoc's 8 concert, that happened, and then it was Herbert Howells and a piece by Herbert Howells, and maybe in a minute you can tell us a bit more about that. And they did an excerpt of a piece.
Yeah.
And he as a composer was quite linked to the festival, wasn't he? But tell me more about this particular piece, choral piece.
Well, yeah. So I mean, Herbert Howells is also the only other composer from the Forest that isn't me that I know of.
Yeah.
And so I've always had this like link to Herbert Howells. I didn't even know his music when I was growing up, but he was such a sort of present character. You know, my granddad was obsessed with him, and obviously he has this big link with this festival. And then when I sort of started actually discovering his music, I just kind of fell in love with it. It's so beautiful, and that I can't remember exactly which bit it was. I think it was the first movement from the Requiem.
Yeah.
Which is probably the first piece of Howells I actually heard, and it's just so gorgeous and beautiful and evocative and just all the things, and I love it. And any opportunity to hear it, I will.
Yeah, so Voces are quite a small ensemble, so it was a pared back version.
It was very intimate, but still very, very beautiful, and it was it just felt very special to be there.
Well, you know, it was. I was trying to find a whiskey for this that I felt could be light but still have a lot of depth to it. So I went for, I suppose this is the traditional or the main expression that Lindores Abbey Distillery have. So this is called 1494, and I'm just going to show it to the cameras, hopefully. And this one I tried actually quite a few years ago. I've been aware of this distillery for quite a while, and I'll just tell you a bit more about it when I just put the bottle down, just so that we could have a little bit. There we go. So the number 1494 actually relates to something, to the actual Lindores Abbey. That's where the distillery is. So the distillery is quite a modern distillery, but they call themselves the spiritual homeland of Scottish whisky, because in the historical records, and I think it might be the Exchequer rolls, there is the first mention of creating aquavita for King James IV from malt. So apparently Friar John Core was creating whiskey for the king up in Lindores Abbey. So it's
good enough for him.
I know, exactly.
It's good enough for us.
Exactly. And so I kind of like that idea of first festival, first mention of whiskey, you know, and this one has, well, from the whiskies I've chosen, has a lighter feel and touch. But as you're more of a gin drinker than a whiskey drinker, this is going to be a fun moment next.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now is, if you go for, I think it's the glass that I've got here, which has got writing on it. So hilariously, I actually went to a local charity shop and found some glasses which are 100-year celebration of the famous grouse blended whiskey. That was quite funny. So first of all, we should cheers.
Cheers.
So that's slange. And then, okay, to taste whiskey. First of all, I look at the colour a little bit. So I kind of think that, you know, that's a kind of light amber colour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing too exciting. Oh, seagulls are getting involved there as well. And secondly, now it's hard to do on this glass, I look at what's called the legs. I don't know whether you've ever done that with wine or something similar, but if you look very carefully on the side of the glass, some of it stays and creates a kind of line or a rim, and then you can see bits of it kind of beading down.
Yeah,
do you see that?
Gotcha.
So that can sometimes tell you how kind of oily the whiskey might be, or how well, not how strong, but maybe how long it might stay in your mouth and the finish might be, or something like that. But it's just an interesting thing to note. And then I have a little bit of a sniff.
Okay.
So what can you smell?
Whiskey. It smells very nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I get kind of orchard apples and pears, but particularly apples. I think this is quite an appley one.
I can see that, yeah.
And maybe a little bit vanilla, but it can be hard to try and get the aroma out of a rounded big glass. But do you pick up anything at all? Whatever you like.
Yeah, well, what you just said. Apples.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it smells very tasty.
Well,
and
yes.
I mean, I really don't drink whiskey, so this is
So now let's be careful on this. So just take a little sip, but maybe hold it in your mouth a little bit, so you really get a real sense of the taste. Okay. And it probably will feel a bit like alcohol because it's your first whiskey of the day, and if you're not drinking so much whiskey, then you know. But let's have a little taste.
Wow, it's definitely whiskey. It's nice though.
Yeah, I mean, I also probably meant to say, let's have a look at the bottle. Ooh. This one is 40, I think it's, oh gosh, my eyesight, 46% ABV. So that's possibly one of the stronger ones we got today.
Yeah, it tastes quite strong.
It's quite strong. So that's what you've got to get your head around first, I think. I mean, you might need to taste a little bit more. But if I just have a little bit more of a sip as well. So I think when you hold it in your mouth, like for me, it's one that stays in your mouth quite a long time, which means that it's got quite a long finish, or it's not just disappearing immediately. But I'm still getting a little bit of apples and things like that, and also a bit of a kind of wood, a wood feel. So it's like the wood of the cask it's been in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
I mean, it's strong.
It's strong, yes. No, well, you see, it's
very strong.
This is going to be interesting because I think you're going to find the others I've chosen stronger. Okay. Because I actually chose this because I think it's the lightest of the whiskies I have available.
Let's go. I mean, I love rum, right? I drink
do
a lot
you?
of
Right?
rum.
Yes, yeah.
But it's got like it's sweeter somehow, and
it's more
palatable.
So that's interesting. But you said when talking about sweet and savoury, you chose savoury over sweet, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, I do like sweet things, but like, sweets like the people, like, what do you call them, like penny sweets? I can't stand them.
Oh,
too
really?
Sweet. When things are too sweet, it's too much for me.
Interesting.
A little bit of sweetness.
Okay.
Though,
Well, for me, I was kind of thinking with the little, especially maybe you're getting it more from the aroma, with the apples and the summer feel. I felt like with that kind of choral music, like the Howells is so beautiful and lightly laid out that of all the whiskies we had, this is the one that had the space.
Yes.
And relative lightness. We'll see what you think when you drink some of the others.
Let's move on.
Yes. Yeah. So if we then go to the second whiskey I've chosen, the piece that I chose to go with that is, I think, something that we're going to hear tonight while we're recording now. So it's the Janáček Glagolitic.
Glagolitic?
Yes. Yeah. I find it hard to pronounce.
Oh, yeah.
Glagolitic Mass. So I've only heard one or two recordings of this, but it's quite a monumental piece. So I think it relates to Slavic language or something like that. And it's a big piece of Janáček's, and it's going to be celebrating the new organ as well in Gloucester Cathedral, because it's got this fabulous moment where there is an organ solo towards the end of the piece. But what way do you choose this from across the pieces?
I love Janáček. I've always loved Janáček. The operas I just think are fantastic. The Sinfonietta, obviously, as a brass player, that piece is just fantastic. I think everything about it's wonderful. So much of his music is brilliant, and this piece in particular, Janáček is all a little bit bonkers, right? It's a little bit bonkers, and there's this, like you say, this. It's not even a sort of interlude. It's a movement, an organ movement, where the organ really gets to kind of let rip, and it's so bonkers in the middle of all this stuff, and the orchestral parts are hard. And then, Janáček always has, my favorite thing about Janáček is the way he uses timpani. So, and a lot of his pieces, he, particularly at the end of the operas, he brings in these, like that, the very high timps. And he uses them in such a sort of percussive, well, I mean, obviously percussion, but particularly because he doesn't really roll on them. They're just, they're used for rhythm. And it's always so exciting, and it somehow like lifts the music higher than it's been so far. So I just think this is, a fantastic piece. I heard it at the Proms live a few years ago with an orchestra from Prague, which was just fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to hearing it. But lots of fun. Yeah, it should be lots of fun this evening. So for this, with a selection of whiskies I paired it with the Ludlow single malt Oloroso Sherry Cask. So you're talking about that sweetness. There will be a little bit of that coming in here. It's because I think Oloroso Sherry, it comes from southern Spain, Andalusia, I think. But this, obviously, what happens with a whiskey is that's what's finished in. So this whiskey would have spent a long time in bourbon barrel cask, in terms of age, and then it was just finished in Oloroso. Right. So it just adds an extra level of flavour or potential depth for a whiskey. And Ludlow Whiskey, I think, has been going for quite a few years, maybe about 8 years, set up by or linked to Ludlow Gin as well, which I think was set up in 2018. And I think they're in the Welsh marshes, and apparently I've also read, I think, I'll get my notes for this. Yeah, so this is 42%, and they make their small batch whiskies, so small amounts of whiskies, from a rare wood-fired German column still. Okay. So a wood-fired still to create the whiskey, which is quite interesting. So
with this one, I felt like, the whiskey has a bit more depth to it. I think it'll be interesting for you to compare as you're learning more about whiskey. And although it's a lower percentage at 42%, I think it feels stronger because of the depth than the last whiskey. And I wanted something that I wanted that sweetness in there because there are moments that are very joyful. And I want there to be depth as well because there are also very
there's a lot of joy in this piece.
Also very subtle moments, like when there's some beautiful flute solos and the way the strings are, but then often the strings come in with a very kind of joyful, almost march-like bit from time to time. So it had such a mixture. I thought this whiskey might offer a real selection. So, again, we can look at the colour. So if I was going to compare the colours, can I do this in here? This one's actually lighter.
It is lighter, yeah.
Yeah, so that one's more amber. This one feels more like a Chardonnay wine. I'm not very good at my wines, but yeah. And then in terms of, it's in this light with the sun, it's kind of hard to see the legs, but I feel like maybe it's broadly similar to the last one. It's hard to tell on a.
Yeah, it's quite similar.
It seems quite similar. So, it does seem quite thick on the glass and then goes down slowly. So I'm going to leave it to you. Do you want to
have a sniff?
Have a sniff?
Well, it definitely smells different.
Yeah.
What does it smell like?
Hang on, I need to.
What does that smell like?
If it's, I'm just trying to. I'll get my nose in.
I mean, you said wood, right?
Yeah, I think there's definitely. I mean, I definitely feel with both of these two, there's a bit of wood. I mean, I think this maybe has a bit more caramel or vanilla in it, or sometimes, I feel like maybe butterscotch and things like that can come in with sherry finished casks. So. Yeah, and I feel like I'm getting more vanilla off this one, actually. So like vanilla custard.
It's very specific.
Yeah. Anything specific for you, or do you want to go straight to
the let's just get
do you want to get to
yeah, I want to taste. It's light. It feels lighter.
Yeah, maybe it does, actually.
It's got, it does have, it's like, it's weird because it has more depth of taste, but it's not quite as sort of abrasive.
I think for me, I suppose, because I mean, I'm trying all these this afternoon to prepare for this. The difference here for me is it's actually smoother. Overall.
Yeah, it's definitely smoother.
So I think the difference is, I actually think in terms of, I'm going to say the flavour notes, the last one, I picked it because I felt it was lighter. Because of the apples and things. Now this is actually feels lighter afterwards because it's smoother overall than the last one.
That's what it is.
But the kind of flavors coming in are the sweet notes, the caramel. It feels quite warming like that, and I think butterscotch and things like that. Yeah, and maybe a bit of nuttiness as well.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Yeah, do you like this one?
I will have a
yeah,
little bit more.
You go. Oh yes, okay. Yeah, it usually happens as you start drinking a little bit more. But I really felt like it has that depth.
I prefer that one to the first one.
Yeah,
I could drink that.
I mean,
that first one
depending on time, we might try and go and have a little taste back just afterwards.
Fine.
But we'll see how we drink because we've got to make sure we get to the reception.
I enjoyed that one.
Yeah,
it's good.
Okay, yes, yeah. Well, have you finished it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's going to be hard to Okay, well, we should probably move straight on to your last piece choice. So there is only one piece left, and actually we've already experienced it across the weekend that we're talking about, and we're in right now. I'm really bad at my pronunciation as well, but it's the Walton Belshazzar's Feast.
Yes.
It was truly epic in Gloucester Cathedral, wasn't it? It was just an absolute belter of a piece. It's absolutely crazy. And I think in terms of the kind of history linked to the Three Choirs Festival, I think maybe it was originally commissioned by, I think it was the BBC or something like that for the Leeds Festival originally, back in the 1930s. But it was, because it's using sacred text in such a secular, non-religious way, it was banned by the Three Choirs Festival until 1957.
Wow.
Which is crazy to think, but now it's such a big piece that's there. And then I think the other thing I read about it as well is also linked to the Three Choirs Festival. For about 250 years or so of the festival, it was not possible for the audience to clap in the cathedral. It wasn't allowed because it was seen as too religious a building to clap.
Wow. Imagine finishing that piece and not being able to clap.
And that was it. In 1957, when they played it, the audience nearly burst into a cheer after the last Hallelujah, and then remembered it was banned, that they weren't allowed to clap.
It's amazing.
Yeah, but I think they finally left it, I think, in 1959, but it took a little while. So yeah, that's quite funny. So tell me more about, because you must have known about the piece before hearing it during the festival. But
I mean, I've known and loved this piece for years now. I actually played in it once at the Albert Hall with the National Youth Orchestra, National Youth Brass Band, National Youth Choir, all combined.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I only got to come on at the very end and sort of played a few fanfares, but you got to hear it all, and I just thought it was fantastic. And I love Walton. I think he's such a brilliant composer. He's so fun and camp. Actually, I think the ending of Belshazzar's Feast, I think, is the campest thing in the world. You know. Yeah. But then, like, musically, it's so colourful and engaging. Yeah. I'm never bored at any point listening to it. Yeah. I never get bored of hearing it. Every time I hear it, I'm just completely howled the whole way through. I just think it's masterful. There's all that exuberance, but there's also so many moments that are just genuinely beautiful and intimate. There's a sort of a chamber choir moment, which is just so gorgeous towards the end. The orchestration is fantastic. Of course, there's offstage brass, so I'm going to really enjoy that. Yeah, like I said, I never get bored of it.
Yeah, it was just so. The performance the other night was just so tight,
fantastic,
and the Philharmonia Orchestra. They was just everything was just so well put together, and then the way it was reverberating around the cathedral, and like when they shouted "Slain" and things like that, it was just so tight.
Like I said, very camp.
Yes. So now we go to another whiskey from Scotland. Mm-hmm. So the wonderful Gordon MacPhail let me have access to a whiskey that they look after called Benromach. And I'll just pick up my card to give you some of the details on this because it's quite interesting. So this one goes back up to 46%, so it's a little bit stronger again. And Benromach is basically in the Speyside region, so it's very close to Elgin and not far from Inverness as well. And that's a region of Scotland which has a lot of distilleries. A lot of them are very, very light, but this one is going to be a bit meatier. And the Benromach was originally founded as a distillery in 1898, but it had a history of being taken over by different people and not lasting very long. And I think it was Diageo that kind of decommissioned it again in 1983. So it was Gordon MacPhail that opened it again in 1993, wanting to do something that was more traditional to do with whiskey in the area. And I thought it was a nice link with this one that I wanted to mention, that the distillery was reopened by the King himself, King Charles, in 1998, and he's the patron of the Three Choirs Festival as well, so it'd be nice to mention that. And this is a new release, so it's a limited release, Côte Rôtie wine finish cask. So Côte Rôtie, I think, is from the Rhône region of France, a red wine. So this has been finished for the last 26 months in a cask that originally had that wine. Okay. So you can see already from the bottle it has quite a dark flavour. Yeah. Yes. I'm going to show. There we go. But I felt like this piece, for the way that the choir sings, and also those really big orchestral moments with the brass off stage and everything else, that this demanded a whiskey of.
Yeah, it's a full-blooded piece. So.
Yes. Yeah. So we should probably swiftly move on to this. So I think colour-wise, we can definitely say it's the darkest.
Yeah,
I think that's the red wine, of course. Yes. Yeah. Okay, legs. I'd say it looks. I don't know. Maybe a bit lighter. Weirdly, it's like more ribbed. Sometimes I see like it's ribbed, so like lots of lines, so it almost goes down quicker. Yeah. And now you are using a Glencairn, which in theory should make it easier for you to smell the whiskey. So
I can already smell it. But
yeah. Okay. You go first.
Yeah.
Is that different?
It is different. I don't know what it is, but it is different.
I mean, I almost feel like I am thinking about red wine with it, but obviously I'm influenced by knowing what it is. But I think kind of more like
I know what you mean.
Berry like forest fruits and that kind of thing. Darker fruits. You want to try a bit?
Yes. Wow.
It's
got a kick. Wow.
So that one, do you see how like meaty I almost call that one is? Like it's a complete change. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely tastes the strongest and has it's the most complex one that I've tried so far. Like it's still sort of doing things.
Well, there's much more pepperiness to it, which you feel on your tongue. I feel like it's almost still coated on my mouth.
Yeah.
That's probably the tannins from the wine, maybe. But it feels like I saw in one review on it, it's quite vicious.
It's got a tang, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think I definitely drink this again, but I think late tonight maybe.
I'm gonna have another taste.
Yeah.
It's funny, like the second taste tastes totally different.
Yeah. Well, I think your mouth gets more used to it, and it feels there's a lighter tones to it for me when on the first part of drinking it.
It's almost like aniseedy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
on the second, it just tastes completely different to the first taste I had. But nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
maybe I might become a whiskey drinker.
I was going to say, do you see the differences in such a range, even with just a select group? And for me, I just like can really you get different colours, different flavours. But I think that's the way I think about music as well. So I love linking the two. Now I'm frightfully aware that we need to head off to a reception.
Yeah.
So I thank you very much, Gavin. We shall continue this later. And maybe we'll do a full episode properly at some point.
Bring some more. Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.
You are listening to Whisky High Notes. Please like, share, subscribe today. Please drink and listen to classical music responsibly.